Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name's Rich, short for Richard Tribe, and I'm an entrepreneur based now in Lewes, near Brighton. Um, Previously in Tunbridge Wells, which is where most of my businesses started. Um, I probably only recently began to call myself an entrepreneur because I started with one business, as I'll explain, and gradually ended up with a number of different businesses, which you can see along the bottom of the screen. And I used to start by telling people the first thing that I did, and then I'd have to explain the second business that I'd started, and then the third and the fourth. And by the end of it, people would be getting a little bit confused. So probably only about 2 years ago, I finally just started saying, yeah, well, I guess I'm an entrepreneur because I start businesses, and that's kind of what I do. Um, Sorry, can you hear me? Okay, was that someone saying there was a problem?
No, no, we can hear you okay, Rich.
Okay, great. Um, so I guess if what I thought I'd do is give you a sort of a little bit of just a rundown of how my own sort of journey has panned out, and some of the sort of whys and some of the obstacles that I've sort of faced during that time. Um, then move on a little bit to what I think has sort of looking back, I guess, has been the thing that I've realised has been the things that have made those businesses successful in ways that they might not otherwise have been. And then talk a little bit more about a subject that I think often doesn't get talked about enough, but certainly from my perspective has been a real key element of why I think I've been able to start a number of businesses, all of which are still running successfully, and hopefully sort of share one of the biggest reasons that I think that is. So my journey as an entrepreneur. So I started out uh, at university. I actually went to study engineering, and I studied a subject called production engineering and management. And my father had been an engineer, so he was kind of keen for me to do that, but I wasn't quite convinced myself. Um, the Sorry, someone's trying to call me at the same time. I will ignore it till it goes away. So I studied engineering, but I also wanted to do something that was a little bit broader than just engineering because I wasn't quite convinced. So I studied engineering, and really every year I tried to give up being an engineer because because I wasn't really enjoying it, and I didn't particularly enjoy the very sort of technical detail of that degree. But I did enjoy the management side of things and the business side of things, and I was lucky enough that in my final year when you have to do a sort of
sorry for
yeah.
interruption. Can I comment here, please? You're writing 6 years redundancy, 6 years business sales, 6 years financial crash, 10 years COVID pandemic. So I dare to ask, how old are you if all these 32 years in business?
I'm 57.
Huh?
I'm 57.
Oh, look younger.
Right, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, no, yes, I've been in business for 36 years now, pretty much. Probably slightly more with other jobs before I finished university. Yeah, so what I was lucky enough to have on my engineering degree was, instead of being set a project in the final year about something very, very technical, is my tutor at university realizing that I didn't really like engineering very much. And then the man who'd persuaded me to keep studying it set me a thesis called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And my job was to actually write a short book about people who'd become millionaires. So this was probably the highlight for me in my studies, because I was able to go out at the age of 20, 21 to various business people around the UK, interviewing them about what they'd done and why they thought they'd been successful. Some of those were quite well known. So I don't know if anybody knows the chocolate company Cadbury's. It was the guy that was running Cadbury's at the time. His name was Cadbury. I interviewed a famous author and a rather controversial politician, but mostly I interviewed fairly ordinary people that had just started very successful businesses. And I guess, I've realized looking back, that really was what started me thinking, this just doesn't look all that difficult. These people are all just normal people like me, and they've all done very well out of doing their own thing. So I guess the seed of running my own business was sowed about that time. But in fact, for the first 6 years of my career, I became a marketing executive and a marketing manager in a number of different businesses, really, that were just businesses that were close to where I lived. So they were a number of publishing businesses and exhibition companies that taught me an awful lot about the business world, about marketing, about particularly about business to business marketing, and all the ventures that I've been involved in have been around businesses selling products or services to other businesses. So I did roughly sort of 2 years in 3 different places, companies like Reed and Macmillan. I guess learning the trade and learning how that industry worked. And at the end of that time, actually, it's about the time I was getting fed up with a particular job, I was made redundant. And so I lost my job because a whole section of the company I was working for got closed down. And that, for me, was the kind of a reminder of why I'd been interested when I was at university about having my own business, because I suddenly realized, having been doing quite well in those companies, I suddenly realized that at any point you could suddenly lose your job without knowing it was coming and without any say in the matter. And my own father had been made redundant a little while before that. So that was, I guess, the wake-up call for me that really I didn't want to be working for other people for the rest of my life. And I wanted to take control of my own career and destiny. So fairly quickly I got another job. I deliberately chose a small startup company that I knew a couple of the guys that had started it. At the time, I was number 6 employee to join that company, but they were very, very dynamic guys. It was 2 guys that had started it together, had left one of the companies I'd previously been working for to start their own exhibition company. And I really sort of saw an opportunity there to learn how to build a small business. So I was in there early. I became quite a key member of the team, and over 6 years in the UK and the USA, quite a small USA office at that point, and it had a tremendously rapid growth. Sorry, someone asking a question? No, I'll carry on. So that was really well. I guess I've been a marketing person at some big companies. I was now really in sales and new product development, in this very sort of fast growing startup, but really involved in every aspect of that business, because that's what happens with small businesses. And I had a great time there and really loved that process of growing a business from very small to a medium-sized entity. That business, the guys that I was running it for, they were a bit older than me, and they very much had an idea that they were going to build this business over the course of they wanted to build a business, and within 10 years they wanted to get that business to a point that they could sell it, because they were a bit like me. They liked doing new fast growing businesses. So that business got sold about 6 years after I'd joined it to an American bank at that point, who wanted to get a presence in the UK. The 2 guys I was working for went off and had a bit of a holiday for a few years, but eventually came back and started another business. And I used a little bit of money that I got from that to really support myself for the next stage of my journey, which was to start my own business. So I then, over the next 10 years, started and grew my own international events business, also with a partner. So a guy that I'd worked with in a similar capacity to me at the previous company. The two of us said, you know, I think we could do this. We've got a new idea for something that would work in this market. It was working with customers we'd already worked with. There was at the time the internet was really sort of starting to make its impact on business, and everyone wanted to learn about that. What you really need with events is something to learn about. So we started that business originally out of my partner's bedroom. About 6 months later, got a small office, and over the next 10 years, we had actually quite an easy time growing that business. Certainly for the first 5 years, we were surprised that everyone had always talked about how difficult it was to grow, to start your own business, mainly because we were right in the middle of an industry that was growing very fast. Everyone was talking about e-business. We had events that looked at all different areas of e-business. So we did e-business for banks, e-business for retail companies, e-business for government departments. And, you know, it wasn't without its hiccups, but we had a stunning first 5 years, slowed down a bit as the market slowed down a bit, but, you know, really got off to a flying start. And pretty quickly, we were up to probably 14, 15 people working for us in that business. We were running 20 events a year, and in London, some of them further north in the UK, but we'd also done events in Thailand, we'd done events in Germany. So we sort of started to get international about things as well. So we were pretty well set up. Because we were doing well, we kept a lot of money in the business, and as a result, so what I mean by that is we didn't take huge salaries. Our plan was also to grow a business that we could sell. So we were keeping money in there to make sure that we had a good cash flow in the business, and we were very lucky. We'd done that because 10 years into that business going, the financial crash happened. Some of you may remember at the end of the first decade of this
I'm
century.
sorry, can I ask you a question, please?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so you start up international events business. So it was worldwide, right? So how many employees did you have?
How many?
How many employees did you have?
15 at that time.
15. So
yes,
15,
we actually
15, right?
Yeah, we organised all the events from the UK, but when the events ran, they ran in lots of different countries.
All right.
But our team was all in the UK. We didn't have employees in other countries. Yeah, and that's not a difficult. That's not a difficult thing to do in events.
Yeah. And the biggest number of employees just you had in your businesses, how many?
Well, it's more recently. It's been around.
I mean,
it's still going, and it's around 20.
The biggest number of employees.
20.
20. So it's not like big company. It's like small company, right?
Yes, that company has always stayed quite small. But I'll talk about a company that got much bigger in a moment.
Okay, and the second question is now just very often I hear like that people judge and say that if you are keen and if you're doing different activities during your life, trying to be expert everywhere, you are not expert in anything. So if you're doing finance, if you're doing administration, if you're doing communication, if you're doing like events, so eventually you're not expert anywhere. So do you agree with that or not?
I do agree with that, and I will also come to that shortly.
Okay, because I see that you did different activities actually.
Yeah, but our real expertise was in organising events, and the discipline of organising events is a particular discipline, so we could cover lots of different subjects.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we would bring in other experts to cover the subjects themselves. So it meant that we events are the sort of business that if the economy is good, they do very, very well. If the economy is bad, they do very badly. And you see that quite quickly. So we realized that we were going to have a tough few years. And at that point, we did two things. We had a lot of cash in the bank. We had come to the end of our lease on our offices. So we did two main things. We used a lot of that cash to build our own offices because we felt that being in property would be a safe bet, and we built offices that we could use ourselves and that we could rent to other companies, and that was just a way of using the cash that we built up, but using it in a productive way. But we also started to look for other opportunities and things that we could use the assets and the expertise that we had to make those other things happen, and try to really kind of spread our risk across a number of different areas. So at that point we started, if you look at the bottom of the slide, Hawkwell Investments was a property company that we started and we still have. That took care of the offices and quite a lot of land that went with those offices. We actually bought an old farm and turned that farm into offices and various other things. We have a doggy daycare centre as well there now. And we also started a business called Inbox Insight. So that was another marketing business. You know, event management is really, the expertise is marketing. Inbox Insight was designed to be a digital marketing business. So we had Revolution Events, which was all about face-to-face and meeting people at conferences and exhibitions. We had lots of data and details of people that liked the subjects we were organizing events around. So we started a new business called Inbox Insight to reach those people in a different way. And this was done via some email publishing initially, but it grew to become lots of other things as well. And that business is the one that really, in terms of size, has kind of been the most successful of the things I've been involved in. That business, we started it again. We actually we had one more partner. So myself and my business partner in Revolution found a third person that knew about digital marketing. So he was the expert in that. And we said, look, we've got some cash to put into a business. We've got we know how to run the accounting systems, all these other systems that you need to make a small business work, and we've got lots and lots of data. So we had about 500,000 records of different people in business that were interested in e-business and the internet and the way everything was going. And we started a new business with him. That business over the next 10 years grew to be 100 people, again in the UK and America. And in fact, we sold that business a couple of years ago and made a very healthy profit on that. So that's the largest business that I've grown from scratch. And that, well, in fact, it was more like 150. We also had 50 people employed by a sister company in South Africa that were doing some sort of specialist work for that business there. So I guess overall it was about 150 people that it was employing either directly or indirectly. So we actually sold that business right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So you can see that my sort of my journey's been punctuated by things not going all that well, you know, being made redundant, my employers selling their business, the financial crash, the COVID pandemic. But all these things have always provided, I've seen it as opportunities and a chance to think again and think how you can improve things for the next time. And during the COVID pandemic, what happened is anything digital grew like crazy, and we saw that as the perfect time to sell a digital marketing business, because not much else was going on, and investors were desperate to find businesses that were could still stand up in that time, especially when no one knew how long the pandemic would last for. And that really started, as I said at the beginning, as someone kindly asked my age. I guess I'm now probably in the last 10 years of what I would say is kind of a business career. That was the first business that I sold. I've now started to sell the Business Revolution events to our management team, and they're buying that business from us over the next 5 years. So I won't be involved in that anymore. I will keep the property, and I will also keep a much newer business that I started a few years ago, which is an ethical recruitment business called Be People. Again, that business came out of the fact that we were often finding it hard to find our own marketing people and some of the sort of staff we needed, and we felt we could also run a recruitment business that we could find those people more easily. So that business is I don't expect anyone here has heard of a thing called B corporations, but it's a new type of business that commits to not only rewarding its shareholders, but taking care of the environment, looking after its employees to a very high standard. And because it's kind of a new way of seeing business. It's something that I've got very interested in quite recently, and therefore I would envisage I'll probably keep doing that for the next up to the next 10 years. So that's sort of where I've been. That's how I ended up with several businesses, which are now sort of reducing in number, but they've all been quite complementary to each other. And if Kataeva, if you could bring up the next slide. Where the slide was, that's it. Yeah, so these are really what I've seen as the things that have linked all those businesses, really. Now, apart from the property side of things, Hawkwell Investments, they've all been in a marketing area. So events is a marketing service. Digital marketing is obviously a marketing service. Excuse me. And Be People, one of its specialisms is finding marketing people. But in fact, recruitment is more like a marketing business than you might imagine anyway, because you're always trying to sell your services to the recruiters, and you're trying to sell jobs to people that are looking for jobs, so the candidates. So I've never felt that I've really stepped outside broadly my core area of expertise. And what I've always done is find someone else that provides the missing part. So I said there was a third partner in Inbox Insight, and he was a digital marketing expert. There is 2 other people involved in Be People, one of whom is a human resources expert, and the other one is a recruiter themselves. So, kind of those areas have been brought in from fresh. Everything I've done has been in business to business or B2B. So that's, I haven't strayed from that, and I've never wanted to go into more consumer focused areas such as retail. So excuse me a moment. But the other things that I've always linked them is in the business to business sector. It's very easy to predict what income and costs you're going to incur, and you can do that a long way out. So in terms of budgeting and actually planning the finances of those businesses, we've always been able to actually plan not just the next year, but the year after that and the year after that. And generally every business we've started with a 5 to 10 year plan on how we think that business will grow. And that's partly to see whether we think it's going to be worth it in the end, but it also gives you a measure that you can then monitor yourself against. All of those businesses have been very easy to test before we launched them, either with existing customers or by going out to speak to new people. And I've never started a business without first going to the customers themselves to say, we're thinking of doing this. Do you think, is this something you would buy? Is this something that there's a need for? They're all, probably most importantly from this side of things, they were all things that we could start with 2 or 3 people. So we could start them small, but by planning the budgets for the years ahead, we could see that it would be perfectly possible to grow them very quickly. You know, the only limiting factor really was building teams. So typically each of those businesses, for the first 9 to 12 months, it would be a very small number of people. And then as soon as we started to get significant amounts of money coming into the business, we always staffed up as quickly as we could. And I think that's a thing that, people often resist doing that for too long. And they think, I don't want to do that because it's complicated having to have employees. It's too expensive. I think I can do everything myself. And as soon as you draw up a plan that goes on for more than the next year, you very quickly start to realize you can't do all that on your own, and you will need to employ other people to help with that. And then really, as soon as you can find them, you need to take them on, because the hardest bit is finding them. They all actually needed a very small amount of money put into them to start with. And in fact, probably the largest amount of money that I personally put up front into a business has been about £10,000. And that was only later. Anyway, and actually the business that I did that with didn't really need it. It was just so that we had some money in the bank. And as it turned out, we took the money back out about 6 months later because it just wasn't really necessary. So I've always worked on the basis that as long as you don't risk too much, you don't put in a whole load of money and then just start spending it at the beginning, then actually, you can really minimize your risk and keep that low pretty much until you know if the business is going to work. And once you've started doing it that way, you find you can do that almost indefinitely. And there's very rarely times when you really have to, put your hand in your pocket and put lots of money in that you didn't intend to. But then I would say the largest success factor of all, and the thing that I said I'd talk about that I just think has really been the secret to this, is that they all started with 2 or 3 equal partners. And I'm become a huge believer in not trying to start a new business on your own. I think that is a large part the reason why lots of businesses fail, is it's just too much for really one person to take on their shoulders. It is hard work, but it's with someone else, you've got someone to share that hard work with. You get a whole, if there's 2 of you, that 1 + 1 really does equal 3. You're definitely doing 3 times the work of a single person, because you motivate each other and you egg each other on. But it's an area that lots of people recommend against. So when I started that first business, Revolution, lots of my friends that were kind of at early stages with their events, they said, "Oh, don't get a partner." I was saying, "I'm thinking of doing this with a guy that I work with at the moment." And generally people said, "Oh, don't, you want to have control." And even if you have a partner, make sure that you have the majority of that business so that you're the real boss. And I disagreed with that. And the business I'd just been working in, that small business that we'd grown and sold for the 2 guys previously, They were equal partners. I'd seen that work, and I really felt that that was the route I wanted to go, and I'm really glad that I did that. At the time, I was a youngish dad in my early 30s with 2 small kids, and it made a huge difference to my ability to cope with the strains of starting a new business, was to have a partner so that we could take holidays, so that we could bounce ideas off each other. Sometimes so that one of us would say, that is a really terrible idea, I don't think we should do that. When left on your own, we might have made some really big mistakes, because that can just happen if you're just sitting there making the decisions on everything. I've always chosen people that had different skills to me. So in the events business, you know, I'm a marketeer and I guess a sales and marketing person. My business partner there he was very much the organizing person, and he was the person that would sort out all the contractors and book the venues and do all the kind of that really sort of solid work that makes an event happen. In digital marketing, I said, you know, we found someone that knew about digital marketing, which we didn't know anything about or didn't know much about. So we've always looked for people that complement my own skills on that. I've always been a big believer in having equal shares in the business, because I wanted partners that had as much skin in the game, as they call it, or as much equity in the business as I did, because then I would believe that they wouldn't take the mickey. They would be as committed to the business as I was, and that has definitely been the case. Most of all, I think it's more fun. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Sorry.
Yeah.
It's really very important for me. Thanks for this opportunity to join this training. And just coming back to what you have said about several businesses, and they will definitely fail in case you're taking much on your shoulders. So you are saying that if you're running several businesses, definitely eventually you will fail. Because I know people who launched several businesses and they are quite prospective. So I would like to hear your opinion, like an expert.
Yes, I didn't. I think you misunderstood. I didn't say you would fail if you had several businesses. I've got several businesses, as I say, until 2 years ago, all those businesses were running successfully, and I was involved in all of them. What I was saying is, I think you have a much higher chance of failing if you try to start a business completely on your own, and that's you may or may not know, you know, that the statistics are that around 80% of new businesses fail within 5 years, and I believe that is often because people just take on more than they can really do on their own. And I believe very strongly that it's much easier to keep your momentum and to keep your sanity if you have somebody working alongside you. Because otherwise, you know, you never get a chance. You never get a chance to take a holiday. You never get a chance to spend time with your family, and it's just too much. And therefore, if things aren't going well, it's too easy to give up. And that's normally what happens, is people end up thinking, I'm working, you know, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I'm hardly making any money. I think I'll just give up and go and get a normal job again. And when you have someone alongside you, you don't have the same desire to do that, because you both want to keep going. And if one of you starts to doubt what you're doing, the other one says, "Oh, come on, you know, we can do it." In fact, that events business, we didn't think, after 9 months, we thought we were going to have to give it up. But because there were 2 of us, we kept going. And 3 months later, it was a huge success. We had lots of customers saying they were going to come to our events, and nobody was actually signing a contract. And just by continuing to push, we found at the end of that first year, just suddenly everybody did sign a contract. They were telling the truth, but they hadn't signed in the first 9 months. And we would I think both of us would probably have given up if we didn't have the other one alongside us.
Yeah, it's what I really understood correctly. It's what my question about. So you're saying if you're starting your business is on your own without any backup, eventually you can burn out. You can feel
Yeah,
burning out, and you will fail with that. So can I ask you a question? If, for example, start business startup is on my own, and when I develop, I can draw and hire more people to be supported, to be backed up. Because it's clear, it's obvious that when you start business, you're quite limited in money, and you should do everything on your own. So you should follow and be cautious about that. Uh, no returning point when you start burning out.
yeah. Well, and the partners I'm talking about, you know, they were in the same position as me, so they didn't have to take a salary immediately either. So I didn't take a salary for a while, and my business partners didn't either. We lived on savings for a while while we got the business started. If you're taking on employees is obviously different, because you're taking someone who probably needs a salary, and that's a risk for you right at the beginning. So it varies. My personal view is that I'm not saying there's no other ways to do it, but is that it's much easier and much more likely to succeed if you have a partner almost from the beginning. Maybe they don't have to be right from the beginning. If you bring someone in later, I would give them some part of the business as ownership, because those people work much better. By the time we sold Inbox Insight, we actually had about 20 people in the business that all made some money from the business being sold, because we'd given them small amounts of shares as we went along, and they were our best people. That's how we kept them with us. And again, that's something certainly in the UK that lots of business owners are really reluctant to share the business. And I don't believe that's a good way to go. I think eventually your employees start to resent the fact that they don't have, that you're getting all the rewards from the business. And I think it's much better to share those things early. Overall, having a business partner, I'd probably look a lot older now if I didn't have a business partner on all those different ventures, because I'd have been working so hard. I don't think I'd have had any life beyond the businesses.
Richard, can I have a question, please? Yeah.
Of course.
So when we speak about the money, right, you obviously would have to invest something for your business. So my question is, how much did you invest, and then for how much you sold that business? So what is the I do understand that you had a couple of businesses. Each business is different, right? Each business had different model, and was probably you require different amount of money to put in initially, right? So
yes,
so let's compare the budget to start and when you sold. What is your income was? And yeah, so I would like to hear the numbers if you can, maybe precisely, not exact. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Sure. Okay. Well, with Revolution Events, we didn't. Myself and Nick, that was my partner. We didn't put any money in. We had some money from the previous business that had been sold. We had a small share in that business, and we knew that we could support ourselves. We had basically a year's salary, so we didn't have to earn any money for a year. And we didn't start to spend money on things like offices and our first employees until we started to get money in from customers. We would, as I said, it was out of a bedroom. We won a large contract, which was for about £50,000 a year, from a client after about 3 months, and we used some of that money to then take an office, to set up a computer system. We were just using laptops until then, and that business, it's a bit more complicated. It's worth about a couple of £1 million now, but that's a special price because we're selling it to the team that are already there and are running it. If I took Inbox Insight, that was the business that 3 of us put £10,000 in each. We hardly used any of it, and as I said, about 6 months later, we actually took the money out because we had more money coming in than we needed. But that business, that business sold for over £20 million. And that didn't all come to me, sadly. But I said we had several employees that also had a stake in the business. But it was a good price.
Oh, that's impressive.
Does that give you enough? Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bit more than that. There's still some money that if the business grows a certain amount, then there's a little bit more to come from that business. We agreed to leave a little bit of money in that business at the end because we thought, well, we think it will do well, so we think it's a good investment for us to keep money in.
Didn't you want to keep the business for yourself and keep just getting the money of the business and not selling it?
Yeah, that's always a temptation. As I mentioned earlier on, from none of these businesses have we really taken huge salaries. We've taken a good salary. We've all been comfortable over the years, but mostly we leave the money in the businesses for when they get sold. This is just good luck rather than design. But we sold that Inbox Insight. We sold that business 6 weeks before Russia invaded Ukraine. So our timing was very fortunate on that because that caused a problem with people who wanted to buy businesses, but we'd already just done the deal. We had no idea that was coming. We actually thought at the time, well, COVID is finishing, and COVID is one of the big reasons this business has grown so much over the last 2.5 years. And therefore, we think this is a good time to sell it. And the third business partner in that business is now in his mid-60s. Well, he was early 60s. This was a couple of years ago. And we'd agreed at the beginning that we would build that business over 10 years and then we would sell it. And that was always the plan. And we were all agreed on that. And so we did it. The timing worked. And
Да, ты же вообще уже чем ты порезала? И открывала Филадельфию, сыр. А там было жесткое, и мне прям попалось. Не знаю даже где
sorry, is that
Виключіть, будь ласка, мікрофон, вас чути. Дякую.
Sorry for that.
Yeah, don't worry. I don't speak whatever language that was. Was that Ukrainian?
Yeah, I asked them to switch off the microphone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so but the thing is, I think sometimes you just have to accept that you've done what you wanted to do with a business. There's always a risk that it won't go quite so well for the next period of time, and there's definitely a combination of luck and judgment in when you decide to sell a business. I personally, actually get slightly bored with businesses after 10 years. And I when I started the events business, our plan was to build that business over 10 years and then sell it. And that didn't happen for various reasons, but partly because we found that it was a very good engine for helping us to start other businesses. So in fact, although that one has not got as big as Inbox Insight, it's been really useful in lots of other ways. It helped us build the offices, it helped us start the digital marketing business, and indirectly it helped us start the recruitment business as well. So but I'm quite happy now to be handing that over to our management team over the next few years, and I kind of want to do some stuff now that is not so much about earning money, but is it just about exploring other areas? Some of those are more sort of social causes that I'm interested in. Some of it's rebuilding my house, which is which I bought with a plan to do that, and I've never managed to get around to it so far. So that's my next big project, is to pretty much demolish my house in Lewes and build it again in a different form.